Welcome to the Kool Health Podcast, where we unlock groundbreaking research in health and wellness by bringing you the latest in health news and in-depth interviews with experts in their fields. We're here to make health cool again. Dr. Bostock, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. I got my good dose of minerals in me for today, so I'm all prepped for the podcast.
Right on.
Yeah, funny question. What's your mineral routine as of right now? It's time to thank the amazing sponsor of this podcast, Alitura Naturals, my go-to destination for high-quality skincare products made with the finest ingredients. At Alitura, they use the most pure, nutrient-rich ingredients at the core of every product, from things like wild-crafted sea buckthorn and organic aloe vera to grass-fed colostrum and organic cacao butter. Each of the ingredients is thoughtfully selected, and it has these incredible healing and nourishing properties. Why do I choose them over other skincare? I mean, just from their all-natural ingredients, guys. Alitura takes pride in using only ethically sourced, natural, and organic materials to create their powerful formulas, ensuring your skin gets the best possible care without harsh chemicals. It's scientifically proven and effective. Each ingredient in their products is backed by thorough scientific research to maximize effectiveness in supporting skin health and anti-aging. And finally, it was created by an expert, Andy Nilo, a former model and actor, founded Alitura after a life-changing accident, and this led him to develop his own transformative skincare solutions. So, guys, join the thousands of satisfied customers who have discovered the stunning results of Alitura's exceptional skincare line. Use my code JEK20, all caps JEK20. Get yourself a discount. This stuff is truly amazing, guys. Thank Hostage Tape. We're here to discover the revolutionary way to improve your sleep and overall health. Mouth taping is a natural and effective method for promoting nasal breathing during sleep, which unlocks a world of incredible benefits, including enhanced sleep quality, reduced snoring, improved mental focus, and boosted overall health. Also, it's a safe and comfortable design, especially designed to be hypoallergenic, gentle on the skin, and easy to remove. It allows you to get in deep sleep states, and I'm telling you, when I put on my Oura Ring and check my scores, they're always so much better when I use Hostage Tape. For the discount code, guys, it's going to be John67447 for 10% off.
Well, as of right now, so that's kind of a loaded question because as of right now, I know this is a popular concept now, and alternative health, as everybody's saying, it's all bio-individual and whatnot. Mine's based off my current test. I'm actually just waiting for my most recent. I use a hair tissue mineral analysis to set up these programs. So mine consists of some zinc, a certain amount of zinc, certain type of zinc, and then some they're specific products in different mineral ratios made up by this specific lab that kind of does this type of mineral balancing. So right now there's some zinc, there's a Cal Mag product. There's sort of an all-in-one, it's a little bit of a whole food supplement that's got extra minerals in it. That one's just basically desiccated vegetables. And then, there's a couple other like products that help your body use those minerals and integrate those minerals into the cells.
So people are probably wondering, why on earth are we talking about minerals, and what even are these minerals? And first things foremost, doctor, what are minerals and why are they important to our health?
Minerals are important to our health because they basically do a whole bunch of different functions in the body. The first thing that I think of when I think of minerals is just they help you, they carry and donate charge. So they're used in enzymes to basically it's called catalyzing the enzymatic reaction. And the way that I think of them is that they just donate and accept charge in the body. And if you think of our body in that sense, it's electric. Cool, interesting book that you can read on that is called The Body Electric by Robert Becker. But
Mhm.
I just tie the mineral thing to that, and really, yes, we are electric beings, and having the right balance of minerals. By doing that, you can improve basically that electricity and improve your overall vitality, but also at the same time, you can reverse symptoms of different diseases and conditions by balancing those minerals in the proper way.
Wow, right on. So thinking of the body as almost like a battery, you're saying when we replenish and incorporate these minerals back into our body, something that's pretty essential to our energy, our mood, our sleep, and all of that, we can return to this electrical state. And if I'm getting this correct, it's like a balance of negative
Yes.
30 to 70 mz. What is that again? Hertz or forgot that
I don't know that particular unit.
that
HT
electrical
I've heard.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, high level of things, minerals are important because they basically fuel us with the proper electrical energy. Most people don't understand that our bodies also run on a lot of electricity. Most
Hmm.
of the way we function through our brain, through our bodies, hormones and neurotransmitters, a lot of that is electrical. You have a lot of clients when they come to you with low energy, fatigue. How do you start to address these symptoms? Do you start with minerals or
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different ways to go about that. There's a lot of different pathways to get from A to B, but yeah, most recently that's been my preferred approach. I used to not think that, or used to be kind of ignorant of just how important minerals are. I used to think hair tissue mineral analysis was kind of bogus because there's different labs that do it. There's different ways to interpret the test. But I came across this specific method that to me just makes a ton of sense. And since I've been implementing it with patients, I've seen some pretty darn cool things. And just in terms of like following other practitioners that use this same sort of system, to me, it's just like seeing some of their results is just like it kind of really grabbed my attention. I'm always looking for something better to help my patients with, and something that I can offer like with integrity, where I can sleep at night, and something that I think is basically the best approach possible. But I'll kind of go into how this approach came about. Was a guy named Dr. Paul Eck back in the 70s, I believe. Well, he came across the work of a soil scientist, and this guy's name was William Albrecht. And what this guy was finding was that the balance of minerals in the soil was certain. He figured out that certain ratios or balance of minerals in the soil was leading to just much more hardy crops, more nutrition in the crops, and then just like more yields. So Dr. Pollack kind of like he came across this research, and he's like, well, hey, like if this works in one living system, why can't we apply this to a human being? And he spent years and years basically trying to apply this system in humans and finding out sort of the right balance of these minerals, because you want to think of minerals kind of as a system where they're all like interacting with each other. And if you've got way too much of one or way too little of another, or if you bring in the other types of minerals, toxic minerals, those can all interfere with how that system's working. And just basically, overall, just going back to what I said earlier, it interferes with balancing your charge and just what your vitality is and your adaptive energy. So, that's what I mentioned off the beginning, that it's about balance. It's not just about taking a bunch of zinc or loading up on a ton of magnesium, or like there's other people in the HTMA world where they say everybody's got a problem with iron, so you have to dump a ton of iron,
right?
and you need loads and loads of magnesium, etc. Right?
Okay. So you named a couple. people have probably heard of magnesium. They've probably heard of
Mhm.
sodium, maybe even
Mhm.
calcium, if
Mhm.
they read a book or two. Um, when patients come to you and you think, oh, minerals might be good for them, what are some symptoms you're noticing? Um, is it autoimmune issues? Is it low energy? What are you seeing with your patients?
Yeah, all of those. Probably the most common one though is fatigue. That's the most common symptom people come come to me for. And again, like one nice thing about this type of testing is it's your mineral ratios can be a certain way of interpreting it is your mineral ratios can be reflective of actually what your hormones are doing. So certain hormones will control levels of those minerals. So things like sodium and potassium are very, very, very closely tied to levels of adrenal hormones like cortisol and aldosterone. Um, you can see just there's different ways of interpreting this where the patterns can show if you're in a sympathetic, meaning a fight or flight state, or more of a rest and digest, if that's your predominant state, right? Um, so I forget what your original question was there. I went off on a tangent, but
Okay, let's say I come in, I got loads of fatigue. I come into you, doctor, and I'm like, hey man, I'm feeling crappy. I have autoimmune issues, which
mhm.
basically means my body's attacking itself. How are we going to address this with minerals?
Essentially what we're going to do is 30,000 foot view is we're going to balance those ratios to their optimal levels because there's optimal levels of these ratios. Um, but the patterns that would come up on your test, they can tell us a lot about what your inflammation is. They can tell us how good your body's producing energy. Because I look at autoimmune conditions partially as an energy issue. There's something called the bioenergetic theory of disease, where autoimmune conditions are just you're not efficiently using energy. And I'll just give you the quick and dirty on that
Yeah,
is you have all these complex systems in you. You got your nervous system, you got your immune system, digestive system, circulatory system, whatever, and they all require like enough energy to basically function properly. Well, fatigue's the biggest issue I said that people have. Well, if your body does not have enough energy, well, all those complex systems in you, like your immune system in an autoimmune disease, it does not have enough energy to function properly. So it doesn't have that energy. So it starts to function not in a good way. And then you start to have symptoms of an autoimmune condition.
interesting.
It'd be like if you had the valve timing off in in an engine, or like, and you're still putting premium gas in it, would that engine run properly? No, it would be probably blowing black smoke, and you'd be hearing ticks and bangs and things like that. Well, that's kind of how I think of an autoimmune condition is an energy inefficient immune system.
I like this. So we're kind of laying a framework for minerals right now. We're starting to understand the importance and how they relate to our hormones and the way our brain functions and autoimmunity, which is so big nowadays. You see it so often, even with children. We need to stomp out the elephant in the room, so to speak. What's up with sodium and why are there so many people against it?
I think that's just I
It's
think
a
that's
mineral,
just
right?
something. What's that?
Sodium's a mineral, right?
Sodium is a mineral. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, to answer that question, I think it's just yes, it's involved in hypertension. And it's added like just table salt, sodium chloride, which isn't like what I don't really think of that as real salt. I think as sea salt is like real salt because it has all those trace minerals along with it, along with sodium and chloride. I think that comes just from basically table salt, which is added to a lot of processed foods. Just being something that yes, it's involved in hypertension, raising your blood pressure. Um, but it obviously has a very significant function in the body in terms of like going back to electrical potential in terms of nerve function, that kind of thing.
Yeah. One great book, The Salt Fix with Dr. James
Yes. Yeah.
Latino,
Yeah.
if I pronounce that correctly. That book's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Amy, yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
I
But he's
mean,
kind of, I haven't read that book, but I've seen a lot of his content.
yeah,
And I think he's kind of one of the people who's sort of, yeah, not so much debunked that, but definitely kind of shown a light on that like salt really isn't, you do need it. And he's talking about real salt.
right.
But yes, that's been something that's kind of changed in the last, couple years since he's been putting out content.
I like this. We're addressing key things that most people have misconceptions about. Salt's not bad if you're getting a full spectrum salt, right? A sea salt, good mineral balance. Let's before we get into some solutions, let's talk about minerals in general and key minerals that you see most people are missing.
Yeah, big ones are probably, I mean, magnesium is up there. Um, I know that is one that's like kind of a well-known one.
Yeah,
Um, just because you'll burn through a lot of it just with the amount of stress that people have.
right,
Um, they're all important. Zinc's another one. But like that's the thing is I don't just because I'm saying this on a podcast, that doesn't mean that people should rush out and like be going crazy on zinc
right.
because what it can do is this is one of the principles of mineral balancing is it'll lower your sodium and potassium ratio. And that's your sometimes when it's too high, you want to take zinc to lower it because again, there's an optimal ratio for it. But if it's already too low and then you start taking zinc, which is what a lot of people were doing for COVID, just for immunity, well, they can unknowingly just make themselves worse over time. It can be subtle for people, but like theoretically, a person's energy levels over time taking a ton of zinc can lower their energy levels. So
That's
that's why it's important to base the mineral supplements that you use on testing.
okay. That's really good to know because a lot of people just start throwing supplements, regardless, even if it's not minerals, B vitamins, um, glutathione, antioxidants, whatever. They're just throwing it at them without having the proper data, right? So you're saying we should get, the macro minerals. We need to have a good balance as well as trace minerals, and all of the above. Let's get into mineral balancing a bit. Now we know minerals are important, but now we need to know that minerals need to be balanced. So, okay, someone, you took the hair mineral test and you see they are, um, I don't know, deficient in some key minerals. How are we going to balance these in a general approach? I know NH is one.
That would be based off their ratios on the testing because again,
Okay.
all those minerals interact with one another.
Yeah.
So it's it's based off of something called the oxidation rate, which kind of tells you what your metabolism is doing. There's a couple different types of oxidation rate. There's slow, where a person's just not generally making energy quick enough. And then there's fast oxidation, where they're making it too quick. And that doesn't, just because they're making energy fast doesn't mean they're energy efficient. So there's certain minerals that help speed it up, that oxidation rate, and there's certain minerals that help decrease it. And then the other thing I mentioned was that sodium and potassium ratio. That's kind of your electrical. Like if you know anything about biochemistry or physiology, you know that sodium and potassium are huge for nerve function, and that's basically an electrical signal. Well, that ratio is overall, you can look at that as your electrical potential in the body. So if it's too low, there's a certain combination of certain vitamins and minerals that will raise that. And then if it's too high, well, something like a certain form of zinc can lower that. And again, there's certain optimal levels for the oxidation rate. There's certain optimal levels for the sodium and potassium ratio. Those are two of the biggest things that you look at on a hair mineral test is first balancing those things out. Um, and then, it's like that. That's probably your biggest thing is balancing the oxidation rate, balancing the sodium and potassium ratio. And that just gives the body, going back to what I said before when I was talking about the autoimmune disease, that gives the body way more energy to do all its functions. And then basically sort of an added benefit of that in mineral balancing is you start to upregulate all your endogenous or the body's own detoxification pathways. And as you're replacing these minerals, the body starts to let go of heavy metals and toxic elements.
Let's
Because
definitely get
one
into
thing I'll
that.
just add to that
Yeah.
is our bodies are very intelligent, and you can almost, and this is my viewpoint now, is you can almost safely say that everybody has a certain amount of heavy metal burden, even if they don't have any crazy occupational exposures. Heavy metals, literally, they're everywhere, and there's small amounts that we just accumulate over time. Well, what the body can do is it can use toxic elements like mercury, aluminum, cadmium, nickel, other ones. It can use those toxic elements in place if you're nutritionally deficient or mineral deficient. It can use those toxic elements in place in certain enzymes, because some of those metals they're about a similar size to the preferred mineral that would run that enzyme. Okay, so your body has a compromise and it uses it. And the analogy I can give you is, say your alternator belt, blows on your car. Well,
Yeah.
you could theoretically, if you're out in the middle of the desert or something, you could take the belt off your pants and put it on there and make it work and drive it to the nearest, mechanic shop. Well, that's kind of like putting a heavy metal in place of something that's deficient in an enzyme. So with mineral balancing, when you start to replace the actual nutritional elements, your body starts to let go of these toxic ones. And then you see levels on the hair test start to rise of these toxic elements over time. And that's how you can kind of know that a person is actually detoxifying and eliminating these metals, rather than just assuming and taking a bunch of chlorella or taking a bunch of cilantro and that kind of thing and just saying,
Right.
hey, yeah, you're detoxing. And it
Wow.
happens at a much deeper level when you do this mineral balancing.
That's I didn't know that. Let's go into heavy metals and how are they so ubiquitous? How do people get them and what do they do to people?
Yeah, so that's a long answer there, but they're so ubiquitous
Powerful.
because they are. I mean, where I am, it's not so much in the water supply. We have pretty good water treatment, but they can be like aluminum can be used like in very very small amounts, but it can be used as an antifungal in our water supply, in drinking water, some municipal treated tap water. Things like nickel are involved in making the hydrogenated oils that are in a lot of processed foods nowadays. Just think of aluminum, you think of just, aluminum cans, cookware, that kind of thing. Um, there's other sources that I'm not going to get into on that one. Just just air quality. If you live in an urban environment, there's like cadmium, there can be, depending on what type of manufacturing's around you, and then they're literally everywhere. So in ice caps in places like Greenland, and in glaciers in the Himalayas near Everest, like they find trace amounts of heavy metals. So they're literally everywhere. Just because you live out in like a rural area doesn't mean you're not being exposed to them.
Wow.
So that's what I said earlier. You don't have to have occupational exposures to slowly accumulate metals over time. And it's just like you could be the healthiest person or seem like the healthiest person in the world. And just over time, you're 40, 50 years old, and all of a sudden you start to have symptoms from your accumulation over time.
Wow. And
And
when
basically what they do is they can interfere with creating hormones. They can they can interfere with your neurotransmitter synthesis. And heavy metals kind of almost have a little bit of a personality to them. You think about everybody knows, probably heard of like the Mad Hatters, the guys who were felting hats and they used mercury as part of that, well, it made them go a little bit crazy, right? Or things like lead, where it lowers your IQ. There's just, if you want to get into it deeper, like I don't know all these, like the back of my hand, but there is a little bit of if you have a ton of cadmium, you can be predisposed to a certain, personality characteristics sometimes. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. If you have a ton of aluminum, kind of a different thing. Lead, I said it was an IQ thing, but it can also make people tend to be a little bit more selfish. But this
Really?
is the thing, is everybody can have a mix of a ton of different ones. So it's not like unless you're occupationally exposed to a ton of lead and you're working with it, or a ton of cadmium, um, usually it's kind of a mix of those things, right?
Wow.
But they interfere with how your mitochondria work, how your hormones are synthesized, neurotransmitters, whole bunch of different things. I don't, I
Okay.
don't, I don't even think we know all the things that heavy metals do.
Yeah. What about fluoride?
Fluoride, yeah, I don't know. Like, other than it's just like stay clear of it. Don't be using fluoridated toothpaste. Try and like use a reverse osmosis system, or have like a really clean water source, especially if you're on municipal water. Um, yeah, they just talk about how it's like a neurotoxin. That's not something that shows up in the testing that I do, but certainly it's like, I recommend that people like avoid like exposure to it for sure.
Okay. Wow. I mean, it's crazy to know that things often overlooked are filled with poisonous metals. Water, your air. Who would suspect you're the air? Like, these
Well, you think
nanoparticles.
just burning a gasoline
Right.
in just an urban environment, and then whatever kind of industries around there, and it's not just like it can, like, think about countries that are blowing up right now in terms of industry, China, India. It's like, well, yeah, we could have all these restrictions over here. We could then all these clean emissions, etc. Well, it does travel, right?
So these
So going
things,
back to what I said earlier,
yeah.
you think of Greenland. It's like you would think they'd have the clean. Well, I mean, they probably do have the cleanest air. Relative, same thing within the Himalayas, but there's sources of heavy metals that they can find in the snow, and
Okay.
it's likely, yeah, it's traveled through just air.
So these things, they're put in the water, they're put in the air, they're put in the food. We eat them and they have direct impact to our hormones, to our mitochondria, to our energy, which can cause that fatigue, cause that
Our
autoimmune.
cognition, our personality.
Even the person, that was crazy, the personality. I didn't even realize
Mhm.
that it could have such a detrimental effect. Let's talk about metabolism a bit. What is metabolism and how do these things affect it? General
Yeah,
overview.
metabolism, like the way that I would sum it up is it would be all of your like biochemical functions in the body. Biggest, like, big thing that it's involved in is obviously energy generation, but creating synthesis of things like neurotransmitters, hormones, vitamins, and it just, yeah, it's what keeps, it's the sum of your biochemistry, I guess, is what I would call it. Um, and sorry, what was the question about it?
Just like, how do these heavy metals
How do
impair
they
our
affect your
metabolism?
biochemistry
Yeah.
or your metabolism? They can slow
Yeah.
it down,
Okay.
just through what I said earlier, is your mitochondria make energy. Well, if you are poisoning your mitochondria with toxic metals, they're not going to make energy as well. Um, I said earlier that they can interfere with something like mercury, can interfere with changing cholesterol to different hormones, like steroid hormones, like testosterone, cortisol, etc.
Really? Wow.
Those are involved in your energy generation. Those are involved in a lot of your physiology. Those are involved in your personality and your mood. Um, Basically, it's just, you can think of it as like a slow poisoning that just, yeah, interferes with correct metabolic function, ideal metabolic function, which, if you have ideal metabolic function, you're making enough energy, and you are, like, your physiology is running properly, and generally you're a healthy person,
Wow. Thank you.
provided you don't have like an insane amount of stress.
Right. We're
but
going to
you're
get into
more
that.
stress resistant if you have great metabolism.
Interesting. So here's the problem. Our body is electrical, most of it, and we have a lack of minerals to provide us with the electrical charge necessary to create all these functions, these hormones, these neurotransmitters, our mood. The air is filled with heavy metals. The water is filled with heavy metals. The soil is depleted of the minerals and nutrients that we need to create these functions in our body. Sorry for the voice. Our metabolism is being impaired by it. We're getting autoimmune because of it. And overall, it's just affecting us in general. Question is, doctor, how can we, let's go on to some solutions now. Let's start with lifestyle solutions on first how we can take out the BS, and then we can talk about minerals. So first, maybe let's get into some lifestyle changes that could really help us take out these heavy metals and start, even with the stress, stop depleting the minerals. Let's get into that first.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to make one comment on what you said. I wouldn't necessarily say that like the air, well, I wouldn't use the term full of heavy metals like the food in the air, but the thing is it's trace amounts accumulated over time, right?
Understood.
But in terms of what you can do, what's controllable for you is processed foods, eliminate those. Eat whole foods, eat foods the way that they come in nature. Water source, sorry. Spring water or a reverse osmosis system where you remineralize that water. You don't want to drink reverse osmosis because it's stripped of its minerals, and then that can cause problems for you if there's no minerals. It is clean water, but there's no minerals in there, right?
Wait, we
So
gotta
your
we gotta
water
pause on
source.
that one because a lot of people think, okay, we filtered it, we're good. That's drinking water, but there's no nutrients in that water anymore because we filtered it, like we scrubbed it clean, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing in it besides the H2O molecules and whatnot. So you need to put minerals back in that.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ideally, something like a spring water would be kind of your ideal type of water. There's issues there because it's like it comes in plastic bottles, etc. Right? Or if you can get, I mean, there's certain brands that are glass bottles.
Yeah.
But the other thing is people just think there's different types of filters too. It's just like, oh, the filter that's on my fridge, well, maybe not. Unless you tested it, you don't know how good it is. So that's why I say an RO filter is probably your best bet if you're going to filter your water at home and you're not going to drink spring water.
Okay.
And then again, there's systems where it adds minerals back to it, or I mean, you can do it yourself as well. Other things are a little bit more, maybe not as easy for the average person, but yeah, living in a rural area compared to like, in a smoggy city, like think of Los Angeles, for example, right? Those people are going to be exposed to a lot more over time, a lot more of these toxic minerals through the air that we're talking about. So those are the big life. Your water source. These are the things you control. Your water source, processed foods, like I said before, the nickel in hydrogenated hydrogenated in the manufacturing of hydrogenated oils, which are in a ton of processed foods.
What are those, by the way? What are those?
What's that?
What are hydrogenated oils for everyone to know?
Vegetable oil, like processed vegetable oils, canola oil, soybean oil, that kind of thing, margarine, just generally the types of oil and the oils that they're cooking in most fast food restaurants, deep frying, that kind of thing, right? Because they're cheaper oils. And then just things like, aluminum cookware, aluminum cans. Those are some. There's other ones that aren't coming to me at the moment, but you can do a pretty big decrease in your risk of exposure just by eating whole foods, drinking clean water, the ways that I said to do it. And then going into the correction, well, the best way that I know is what we've been talking about on this podcast is mineral balancing. And it's a certain way of interpreting a hair tissue mineral analysis. Because I said before, there's a ton of different ways to interpret it. Some people do replacement. They see, on the hair, the zinc is low, so that person needs some zinc, and their calcium's low, so that person needs some calcium. oh, and they don't have any selenium, so let's give them a selenium. That's replacement therapy. And that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about balancing these ratios. And it all goes back to what I said earlier. It kind of this idea came from a soil scientist, who was finding that there's a mineral system, that they all interact among one another, and certain ratios and balance of minerals creates a much more vital organism. And it was Dr. Paul Eck who over time learned how to apply that to humans. And then basically, from what I'm seeing and from what he saw and other practitioners are seeing, that it's a very intelligent system, and it basically works in reversing different diseases and conditions. Doesn't matter what the name of your condition is. And another byproduct of it is the body starts to, when you put the right balance of minerals in it, it starts to increase your vitality, starts to increase your endogenous detoxification capacity. And you can actually see on the test over time, these toxic metals start to come out. And this is a testable thing. And you can think of a hair tissue mineral analysis or in HTMA. It's technically is a biopsy of tissue. The hair's an extension of skin,
Yeah.
okay? And skin is an elimination organ. So you can see these metals actually start to come out, and you can confirm, hey, what I'm doing, I'm starting to detox heavy metals. And I think it's a way more gentle and safe way of detoxification of metals than something like chelation, where you're using EDTA, DMPS, DMSA, because you're letting the body kind of do it on its own accord.
I like that. It's
Yeah.
the detox. You're right. A lot of people think, they'll go to a doctor or some random person and go, hey, I need to detox. And they'll go, okay, chelation this. Let's just rid your body of everything, right? Get it all out. But it gets out the good stuff too. So I like this balance, right?
Yeah, the one comment I'll say there's most people doing that, because I work in this industry. Like most people doing that, they're like, okay, well, in between those chelation treatments, we're going to remineralize too. But what it is it's just a big mix of trace minerals and calcium and magnesium, selenium and zinc. And they're not taking into account what I've been talking about this entire podcast, is the mineral balance, and how all that zinc, selenium, trace minerals that they're pumping in an IV bag, they're not taking into consideration how these minerals interact and how there's ratios. And just pumping a bunch of zinc in an IV bag into a person who has a low sodium potassium ratio already can make them worse. So it's just
I
an
like it.
assumption. It's just like, it's using a blunt instrument. It's like, let's use some DMSA, let's rip all that out, including those chelators. They'll take out some nutritional elements too. And then, yeah, we're going to just slam you with a bunch of other, just a big mix shotgun approach of minerals in an
Okay.
IV bag. It's not an intelligent system like this.
So we really need to test and balance our minerals to get these full desired effects. How do
Yes.
how do we get a test?
So a hair tissue mineral analysis, pretty simple test. There's a preferred lab, and then there's a second choice lab that I use. But it's simple. You collect a sample of hair from basically the nape of the neck up to kind of the back of the head in different spots, and then you ship that out, and then it's about a week and a half to 2 week turnaround to get your test results. There's a lab out in Phoenix that does this.
Okay.
A
And
simple
then
at-home test.
okay. And we will meet with a doctor like you, and you'll see these imbalances. And how do you start to correct them? Is it supplementation or IVs? What are you doing?
So there's supplements involved, and then there's a dietary, like depending the different patterns. There are some different dietary recommendations depending on the patterns. And yes, the supplements, there's specific ratios and amounts of certain nutrients that, if you're trying to improve a person, like speed up a person's oxidation rate or slow it down, or raise calcium or raise, like there's certain supplements for all the different patterns in a person's test. So it's quite
Interesting.
specific that way.
This is exciting. This is really good to know. It's not usual that you'll hear about minerals, which is now we know so essential to the human body. What are some amazing stories from your patients that you've seen directly with working with them?
Just
Do you have any
people who
fun
are
stories?
chronically sick,
Okay.
who, I mean, they've tried to, like, usually most of those people have tried a million different approaches. And just you see them get better and better over time. Um, Women in perimenopause, menopause, if you work with patients in that age range, have a lot of times losing weight is an next to impossible thing. That start to improve. Um, Energy levels, changes in psyche, like changes in a person's outlook. Going back to what I said earlier, minerals they do imbue a little bit of a personality. And there is, on these tests, there's different patterns that I've talked a lot about patterns in this podcast, but there's different patterns that Dr. Pollack identified that they are associated with certain personality characteristics. Doesn't mean it's like, oh, you've got this, this pattern and, oh, you're that personality. But a lot of times there's some close associations with sort of some of your characteristics and how you're looking at life a little bit. So just much better outlook on life, more open, feeling more open, just way better emotionally, more stress resistant. Um, and yeah, just over time, as you're going back to what I said earlier, as you release those toxic metals over periods of months, just anything and everything in terms of symptoms can improve.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really awesome. How'd you get into all of this, and what's your journey like?
I got onto it just following a few people that were doing it, and it was just like, to me, like, and they were posting a lot of their client results, and to me it's just like, okay, I can't ignore this anymore. I used to not think much of minerals. It's like, yeah, I gave them lip service. Yeah, they're important in nutrition, blah blah blah, but I did not know that you could affect. And I thought HTMA was kind of bogus. Like, I didn't think much of it either. I never used it. And then I was like, okay, okay, once I realized what you could do for a person's health by, again, manipulating this whole mineral system, um, again, I'm always looking for literally the best way that I can to help patients. And at this point in my career, and I've done some pretty crazy training, like in terms of just other things. But I'd say at this point in my career, this is the best thing that I have found
Wow,
for
minerals.
reversing disease, for reversing symptoms, or if you're just a person who wants to optimize yourself and just long term prevention over time.
Love that. On the market today, you're seeing a lot of mineral supplements. You see a lot of these sports packets, the liquid IVs, the elements and whatnot. How is there a way we can contribute those? How do you feel about them? Are they balanced? What are your takes on those mineral packets? And to double that, what can we do universally to enhance our minerals? Let's start with the former.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
latter.
I mean, I don't want to, like, because if you asked me this, 2 years ago, I would have, like, I'm not going to slate anyone's product. The industry is what it is. Um, Everybody's trying to, like, get a piece of that market. At this point, like, the way that I would view them, I just have no use for something like that at the moment, based on the way that I approach things. Um, so yeah, it's just like, it's the nature of the alternative health space. There's just so much out there, right?
Okay.
And there's certainly some of these products are certainly helping people, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't say that they're, like, sometimes there's some overpromise with, what this product can do, etc. And it goes back to everybody being different. And then just how people can, like, improve their overall mineral consumption. I would just say, like, again, it's kind of hard to do it with food nowadays. You kind of touched on it earlier when you talked about the soil's being depleted, and that is a kind of a well-known thing. So it's hard to, at least what we've been talking about, it's hard to balance minerals. I would tell you it's basically maybe not doable to balance them just through food alone, but eating properly is certainly an important thing, and getting mineral-rich sources of mineral-rich foods certainly important. So what you could do there is, I would say, like, try and eat organic if you can. Try and eat a lot of even just well-cooked or steamed vegetables, so you can absorb those minerals a little easier. Just eat as clean as you can, kind of thing, and as close to organic. I know that's not possible for everyone, just with the cost of food.
Yeah.
And avoid just processed foods, which are going to be nutritionally just inferior than something that you could grow yourself or that you could buy at a local farmer's market. Yeah, that's what I say. I mean, there's whole food supplements out there that are like rich in minerals, and there's certain other types of supplements that promise to be like rich in minerals as well. Those can be a consideration, but to me, they don't get, because you don't know what's in there mineral content wise, and it's just in piggybacking off what we've been talking about, the mineral balancing, generally that requires supplements, and specific supplements for specific patterns.
Got it. This is awesome. Minerals, for the first time on the Kool Health Podcast, we're really breaking it down. Thank you. Let's wrap up a huge summary of what we can do. We understand the importance of minerals. Affects our whole human body, affects our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our energy, mood, personality. Holy cow. And what we now know is that there are other minerals. There's bad minerals, those heavy metals. They're in our air, they're in our water, they're in our food. And unless we take action to eliminate those heavy metals, but at the same time testing for the good minerals and starting to balance them with meeting with Dr. Bostock, right?
Bostock, yeah.
Yes, let's go. Meeting with a doctor like you, a functional medicine doctor, and starting to balance those, then we can start to take out those heavy metals. Then we can start to feel good again, get our brain back, get our personality back. That's wonderful. Anything else you want to add to this?
Yeah, the only thing I'd leave people with is just, I've said it a few times, is it's not a well-known thing. I didn't know it, but minerals are a system. So taking one mineral in isolation, I mean, there may be very subtle effects, maybe not anything you're going to notice, but it could happen over time. It's just they all affect one another. So taking or just doing replacement based on a hair tissue test, or just randomly taking supplements, it's not the same as what I've been talking about. And that's balancing those ratios and trying over time to get those ratios and levels interacting amongst all those different nutritional elements and even heavy metals, that you can drastically improve your health just by manipulating something that seems as boring and uninteresting as minerals.
Right on. The boring minerals which are saving the day.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? We're going to put all of your information on how to meet with Dr. Clayton Bostock. We're going to put your Instagram, your websites and so forth, all the information. You have great videos, great tips. I found out all about the iron and the zinc videos with you. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Information will be down below. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Until next time, guys. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to this Kool Health Podcast. Our goal is to make health cool for everyone, so thank you for your contribution to this cause. If you received any benefits out of this podcast, please consider supporting us by hitting like, sharing it with others, and subscribing to our channel. Thanks once again, and see you guys next time. Now go make impact in this world.